Hello everyone, thanks for joining. I think we're having the same issue as the last time. We'll just give it a few more minutes to allow more people to join. I think there was around 18 before that had registered, so just a few minutes there. Just double checking. Yeah. Just switching the microphones on for everyone as well. So if you do have any questions, you can just join in whenever. You can also pop them in the chat, whichever one you feel comfortable with. As I say, we'll just give it a few minutes before we begin. The setting for this, that I should change before beginning. Options. Hello, Mike. There we go. Should work.
What camera on?
A minute past, we'll just give it another minute and then we'll just get started. The webinar itself will of course be recorded, so anyone that has registered should have an access to the recording. And yeah, I think we should just get started then. We've got enough people on the call, so we'll just begin. So hello, thank you all for joining this month's webinar. My name is Sandeep and I'm part of the training and implementation team here at Engage Health. And this month's webinar main feature we'll be focusing on will be Engage Arrive. It's one of our new features that we have recently released. The webinar itself will follow the usual format where we'll cover some of the most recent releases and what's been new there. Our main new feature, which is Engage Arrive, covering our next few releases and our future roadmap. And then finally, we'll settle on just any final questions that anyone may have about the webinar or through Engage in general. So to begin, that's, as I say, the objectives for today. Engage Arrive, roadmap, and then questions. So the previous releases then, there's been a lot of work with our dev team and the NHS app. There's been a full uplift on that. Huge changes to how the patient journey looks from their perspective and submitting those requests in. And those changes will hopefully in the future be reflected across onto Engage Consult overall. And our latest release as well has some minor changes for our EMIS PCS users. They'll be able to open the patient record within the client, and Engage Arrive also being released for another clinical system, which is System 1 as well. So speaking of Engage Arrive, I guess that's what we'll touch on next. So initially, Engage Arrive was part of our check-in and our touchscreen, which has now been ported over to our Engage Consult client platform. So just a few facts on Engage Arrive itself then. How will that help your patients? So as it's mentioned here, the patients will be able to enter their info with the privacy of their own device. They won't have to step into the reception room and type in their personal details in a room full of people. A hygienic route to check-in. It provides infection controls. So, as a check-in screen, multiple people using it multiple times a day. It does provide a hygienic route for a patient to just check in on their mobile and do it that way. Convenience, with location settings, patients can check in from the car park with no need to queue in the practice check-in areas. So you're able to set your location settings and you can set the perimeter on where the patient is able to check in from their mobile. So as it's mentioned there, if you want to but the maximum radius is about 100 meters. So if you want to set that for the patient to check in from there, you can do so. So that means that the patient can check in 100 meters from the specific location. How will Engage Arrive help the practices? Well, of course, it will help reduce bottlenecks within the practice and reduce pressure on the reception staff. Patients can check in on themselves rather than having to speak to reception, or if they're in the practice itself and they're checking in, there's any issues with your check-in feature, you know, the reception team will have to go and look at that. Whereas with the check-in feature on the mobile, they'll be able to just click on their phone and check in for any appointments. Reducing the number of suppliers you need to work with, so and that brings time savings as well. No need for a separate check-in service with the Engage Arrive implemented with an Engage Consult. You'd be able to pop that on as an additional feature, and for currently our Engage Consult users, it is a feature that we can add on currently free of charge as well. And that ties in with saving money against expensive hardware with the cost-effective digital solution. So you don't need to have a physical check-in screen in the practice. It works within the management console of the Engage client. I think we have a quick question there in the chat. So let's see, will this only work for Engage Consult users? The Engage Arrive feature can work as a standalone solution. You would need the client, I believe, to have the settings all set up, but it can be purchased as its own standalone solution if it needs to be done that way as well. So yeah, it isn't not specifically for Engage Consult users. It can be a standalone feature as well. And that ties into, no problem, Lucy, thanks. And that ties into the next point. There are further versions of this will bring you an array of new features, enabling proactive approach to supporting patients who are in the building. So yeah, as I say, it is available as its own standalone feature, and we'll be having a much more development cycle alongside Engage Arrive, similar to the Engage Consult solution, where you know, new features are added on a relatively quick basis. I'll quickly just show the Engage Arrive setup within the management console itself. So if we take off there, open up our Engage Consult client. Here we have the Engage agent, which would be installed in the first instance. So this is the piece of kit basically that ties in with your clinical system. The example I'll be using today is the System 1 clinical system. As I say, it is available currently for EMIS PCS, and other clinical systems will be, well, EMIS Web will be actually, that clinical integration will be out tomorrow, and Vision will be coming soon as well. So the example I'll be using today is our System 1 solution. So the Engage agent is installed, the connection is approved. We take our information here, our gateway host and our port, save and test the connection, and that's all set up from there. Brilliant. So now what we want to do is look at the settings for the appointment arrivals. So here's where we can configure when patients are allowed to check in, and how close to the site they're allowed to check in as well. So again, just on the left-hand side, appointment arrivals, you click onto here, and here we can see it can be enabled or disabled just by the switch of a button. The URL, which you can add onto the patient portal, which I'll show in just a quick moment. What time, well, number of minutes it says here, the patient can check in early, so 60 minutes before their appointment, or you can change that all the way down to about 5 just to make sure it is precise. And patients can check in late as well if that's a feature you want to include, so you can set that to 0, and you can set that to a maximum of 60 minutes. A message can also be displayed to the patient as well. So as soon as they click on the Arrive for your appointment tab on the patient portal, which I'll, as I say, I'll highlight in a moment, you can display some text to the patient just to let them know what to do from this stage here. Scrolling down a bit further, here we have a location for your site, for example. If you do need to change this, if we have the example here, practice, just use, you can use what 3 words to get a precise location, but if it's easier for yourself, what you can do, just pop in the postcodes, which is really handy as well. So this is one, this, and that'll get you as close as you possibly can, and you can change the tiles as I mentioned from the what 3 words option that we have as well. And then, as I mentioned, you can allow arrivals within a specific radius too. So we can open this up and have that as close to 10 meters from that specific location, or to specifically 100 meters far away. So, you know, sort of judging it from where the car park is, for example, you can just set it to 100, hit save. The patient then will be able to check in from around 100 meters from this specific what 3 words location point here. Any questions on that there? You can pop them in the chat. You can just speak up if you'd like, if that'd be easier. Neil.
Hi, Sandeep. How are we doing? See the Engage Arrive, was it a client or something needs to be running on the practice? So where does that run, and is that?
I don't know, Neil, if your mic's muted or... You can hear Neil. Let me check my settings. Apologies, Neil. It's my speakers don't seem to be working. Are you able to just put your question in the chat at all? Would that be possible? Thanks, Neil. And Marianne, you've got your hand up as well.
Hi, just a quick question. Does it tell you the location of the person? So if they've arrived themselves in the car, does it tell you they're sat in their car? Because obviously if you have a fire or the GP's looking for them, or how do you know?
Not that I'm aware of just now, Marianne. It's a good bit of feedback. I can certainly pass that on to our product owner and our development team. That is something that we can certainly feedback. At the end of the patient check-in, it does confirm to the patient that they have checked in. But yeah, it may be worth having the optional question there just to say, you know, if the patient is in the car park, to let the practice know so you're able to know exactly where they are rather than just waiting for them to pop into the practice itself. So yeah, I'll certainly feed that back. Thank you. And I'll quickly jump back to the chat here at Lucy. So can you have this work alongside a physical touchscreen? We have a large portion of patients who do not use smartphones, and is this accessible for patients through an app or web address? Another great question, Lucy. Yes, the physical touchscreen can still be used as a check-in feature. Ultimately, it's whichever option the patient chooses first, I guess. So if the patient checks in on the touchscreen, then when they click arrive for their appointment on the patient portal, they've already considered it as arrived, and vice versa. If they arrive on the patient portal, if they go to the touchscreen, it would consider them as already arrived for their appointment. A second point, is this accessible for patients through an app or web address? Yes, we do have our Engage Consult app where you can advertise the appointment arrival on the patient portal there, and that is also accessible on the web address. So if the, as it's mentioned here, if you're able to get this message, get this URL across to the patient, if they're not using the Engage patient portal, for example, you can send them a message, for example, with this URL. They click on this and it would take them directly to the check-in point, which I'll show after we've covered these questions. The last one from Lucy, I believe, is if the patient checks in the car park, will they get notification? If the patients check in the car park and wait there, will they get notification that they've been called on their phone? Again, the patient would check in, and if they are outside, I guess, yeah, they would need to, well, they would have to go inside for their appointment anyway. I guess we would need to notify the patient in that case. Yeah, another bit of feedback that we can pass over to our development team. Yeah, if the patient, you'd have to know where the patient was for you to find them. So yeah, I'll certainly feed that back to the development team to let them know about notifying the patient on there. From Neil, the engagement needs to be installed. Yeah, as Neil was Claire's mentioned in the chat, yes, the Engage agent will be installed on a single machine, which preferably would be left on at all times, as it acts as the connecting point between the two Engage Arrive functionality and the clinical system. Lauren has a question there. Do they need to sign up to an Engage account, or can they enter their details on arrival? No, they don't have to sign up for an Engage account. What it will do is it will use the patient's details, cross-reference them, I guess, against the clinical system. And this can be used as a guest use, for example, for Engage Consult users, and for if you're using Engage Arrive on its own. No, you wouldn't have to, as a patient, create an account to arrive for the appointment. Any final questions on that before I just quickly highlight the patient's perspective and checking in? No, brilliant. So yeah, the Engage Arrive has been set up then for the practice. So we've now put this on the patient portal, or this link has been sent to the patient for them to check in. How does that look like from the patient's perspective? Well, we have the up here. So patient would click on that specific link, and then they would look at something which would be similar to this here. So arrive for your appointment. To check in on your mobile, we require access to your location data. If you don't allow the location sharing, we won't be able to check you in for your appointment. That would be able to pinpoint them to exactly where they are and how far away they are from the practice as well. So the patient would click get my location, and it would pop up with, if you're using an iPhone or an Android, allow location services to be enabled, and that would it would only access the patient's location when they're arriving for their appointment, and that's it. The location services just would only work at that specific point. Patient would then be asked for their date of birth, which they would type in here, day, month, and year. Hit continue. Surname, they'd be asked the first 3 letters of their surname. And then from that information, it would then search across the clinical system, confirm they are a specific patient, or patient name, whoever they are. If they are that patient, click yes. If they're not that patient, click no, and it would try and do the search again. If they click yes, they would be marked as arrived. So thank you, test patient. You have been marked as arrived for your half-past appointment. Please take a seat in the waiting room. And of course, if they are waiting in their car, we'll need to work on that wording a little bit, and I can feed that back to our development team on there for that specific scenario. Any questions on the patient-facing side of things? Again, if you want to just pop in the chat or pop your hand up, or just let me know, whatever suits.
Sandy,
Alex, hi.
Question. Just aware of how our current check-in screens work. I just wanted to confirm with this one, when you put in your date of birth and then your surname, I'm just thinking about the scenario that you might be twins in a practice, which is not altogether uncommon. What's the next sort of, if there's 2 patients that match, you know, how are you matching patients? Is it patients that have got an appointment like now, or is it all of the patients in your practice? You know, what's the likelihood of there being more than 2 matches, and then if there is, does it narrow it down in some way?
It's a great question, Alex. The patient matching, I would take it as if there are multiple patients for that specific appointment, then yeah, I'm not actually sure how that would work. Yeah, I might have to get back to you on that one, Alex. Apologies.
My question, Sandeep, is more to do with kind of information governance, I guess. Do the patients ever get given a list of names, for example? Are you know, XYZ? You know, what's the likelihood of there being just, you know, one match, and, you know, it's just about what information they get shown. That's what my question relates to, essentially.
Yeah. Again, the date of birth and the first three letters of the surname, once the patient hits continue, it would just ask the patient if they are this specific patient. You know, Sandeep Singh, for example. It wouldn't show any further information based on that patient. It would just show that patient name. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, for example, if it searches within the next hour of patients that have booked appointments, for a patient with date of birth and first three digits of surname, I could imagine that the likelihood of there being more than one match in a typical practice is probably going to be very low. But if it searches on the patient list for a start, you know, then we have quite a few twins in our practice, so it's going to find those. So how does it refine it, or does it use the patient? Does it use the booked appointments to refine it, or, you know, that's what my question relates to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm understanding it a bit more now, Alex. Thanks. Again, I'll need to check with our development team specifically on how the searches are done across. Actually, I think Claire has popped in the chat. If it cannot find a unique match, Engage Arrive will direct the patient to reception, only in the configured time window. There you go. Thanks, Claire. So yeah, if there's no unique match specifically for that one patient, then they will be directed to the reception.
Yeah, that would be perfect. I mean, it's just because I'm having to do the information governance thing for us to try and get it activated, and clarity on that kind of thing, I think, is going to be crucial.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. I think Claire has also mentioned that she's with a product owner, Emma, as well. So yeah, any additional questions on that can be covered. So just in the chat, Martin, can it be set up for patients to check in without using location services? I mean, I think from the settings page, it would, if you're accessing the check-in feature on a mobile, it would always ask you for location services. But that's a great point. Yeah, if we are able to set that up without location services, that would be ideal.
Thanks, Sandeep. I was just kind of conscious of people that maybe don't like having their phone track their location.
Yeah, no, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the location services only really work for the Engage Arrive at the time if they are arriving for an appointment. It wouldn't access their location at any other time, I believe.
Sandeep,
yeah.
It's Emma here, the product owner. Can I just jump in and
sorry.
help you out there? So the location services, yes, it's just at the point that they want to arrive for an appointment, and it is there to protect the practice. If you imagine that a patient is running a little bit late for their appointment and they think, well, I'm just going to be a bit cheeky, I'm still down the road, but I'm going to arrive for my appointment, but they're not actually in your practice, and then you might be calling the patient and they're not coming through to the appointment, so you might mark them as DNA. You've got no way of proving whether they were actually on site or not, so that's why we do have that location in there. We have talked to customers about whether they would want us to have an option where that is taken away, and so far the feedback has been, oh no, we want it in there. But we are more than happy to hear of a use case where you don't want the patient to have to share their location, and we can look at putting in an option where we take that out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. A question from Lucy. Do you provide a QR code to display in the waiting room, and can the check-in feature be coded into our website, for example? Yeah, of course. The URL itself is the appointment arrival for the patient. It's just a basic URL website, so that can be tied into a QR code, which we can provide. And yeah, of course, that could be embedded onto the website as well, just as this singular URL. So yeah. Neil, if the patient has multiple appointments on the same day, for instance, GP, then to get bloods taken, does it check in for both or prompt you to ask which you are checking in for?
I'll take that one if you like, Sandeep.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's configured to look at a time window specifically. So it's not the whole day. So you have control of that time window, and that might allow patients to arrive 10 minutes late and 30 minutes early. So it'll look at that 40-minute time window. If they have more than one appointment in that time window, it will arrive them for all of them currently. Now, within our existing patient check-in solution, we have added the options in to arrive them for their first appointment only, or to actually direct patients to reception. If that is a feature that customers feel is important, that is something we can implement in the future, but currently it will mark them as arrived for all the appointments they have within that time window.
Thanks, Emma. And a question there from Lauren as well. We have multiple waiting rooms. Can we specify which waiting room they have to go to when checking in online? I believe, yeah, on the check-in point here, yeah, thank you. You have marked as an appointment. Please take a seat in the waiting room. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if that text is configurable, but if it is, you'd be able to change this over here. Again, it might also be depending on what patient and what appointment they've arrived for. They might have to be in a specific waiting room. So yeah, we'll have to double check that. That's fine. I'm not sure, Emma, for that question from Lauren there, is there a way to specify which specific waiting room for them to wait in if they are checking in?
That's going to be in a future iteration, Sandeep. So at the moment, no, it doesn't. But that is something we have in our existing solution, and we know that is important to customers. So yes, we will be implementing that in the future.
Brilliant, thank you, and I really appreciate your help, Emma. It's for answering those questions as well. Yeah, so I guess we've covered the sort of main points for Engage Arrive. So if you do want to have this included in your practice, please do let us know. We can switch this on for you and go through the onboarding process and getting everything set up for you. Moving forward with the webinar itself, the roadmap and what we have coming soon. We have Engage Arrive for all our clinical systems. So as I mentioned at the top of the call, it is available for EMIS PCS System 1, and I think as of tomorrow, it will also be available for EMIS Web. Vision will be the next clinical system we're currently waiting for assurance from. Fiona, you've got your hand up, sorry.
Hi, sorry, I was just thinking about how configurable, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sorry.
How configurable the physical check-ins can be, where you can have, you know, for example, a GP off sick and somebody else is going to be covering their clinic, so they could get a message if they're checking in for Dr. Smith to say Dr. Smith's off sick, but Dr. Brown is covering the clinic today. Or you could have a message if a doctor has got a medical student in with them, so that if patients are coming to see, for example, Dr. Flett, it might say that the medical student's going to be there for the appointment as well, or to approach reception if you don't wish that. Or are you able to configure it to that sort of degree, where you can have messages to patients who are checking in to see a specific clinician that day, that they get a message?
I'll take that one, Sandeep. So
Thanks, Emma.
again, that is going to be a future iteration. It's in our existing touchscreen solution, so we know that is important to customers, and it's good to hear that it's still important. So that's certainly going to be on the roadmap for a future iteration.
Okay. Will there be a webinar about the physical touchscreen coming out soon?
Yes, there will be.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks, guys, again for your help on that one. Yeah, so just on the roadmap there, as you can see, we have Engage Arrive coming for all clinical systems. Problem matching through the NHS A to Z API, which, as I mentioned at the top of the call, part of our NHS app uplift, we've integrated that with the NHS A to Z API, which will allow patients to basically using the NHS API, when they type in a problem, it will show them a much more detailed list of self-help information and specific links to their specific problem which they've typed in, and it also would tie into their the pharmacy first service, which has now been introduced as well. So if they type in one of the 7 conditions which a local pharmacy, any local participating pharmacy would be able to assist with, they'll see the content and information from that specific pharmacy if it is available to that patient. That will tie in with the patient's journey through the NHS app, and that will in the near future be also included for our Engage Consult users on the patient portal as well. That's going to be sort of ported over as well. NHS informed content available for Scottish users. That's sort of similar to the previous messaging as above. Patient verification through PDS, which is highlighted there, is currently going through assurance. So the patient would be able to be initially matched if they're a new user submitting a request. It would initially match their details through the patient demograph system and match their name, postcode and date of birth. The verification part would still be completed by a specific person viewing the request on that initial process, but the initial matching can be completed through PDS as a new request coming in. And another one to highlight for us specifically, we've had a lot of requests for our outbound messaging to be improved, and we have listened to a lot of feedback on that. We had the option to prevent patients replying in two-way messaging. That is something that we'll be looking to include on our outbound messaging as well. Appointment links will also be available through outbound messaging in the future. Prioritizing those outbound messages as well, and just general improvements to that service overall, so you can use Engage Consult or the Engage client, so to speak, as a catch-all system as opposed to just inbound requests coming into the practice. You'd be able to use the outbound messaging feature to directly engage with the patients and the general population across your area from there. I guess just from there then, does anyone have any final questions for myself or for Claire or Emma if they're still with us? Anything general about Engage at all, or anything that they want to just double check? Alex.
Yes, Sandeep. I just wondered if you had an update to the wrong patient scenario that I've been with you through a few times. Because we had yet another one yesterday. A gentleman put through a request, and bore you with the detail, but he filled it all in, and it was actually all about his wife. He put it under his own name. It was just the ambiguity of that. Is this request for you wording? Is there any update at when that's going to come live? Because it's a constant problem for us.
I'll take that one, Sandeep. I'm just checking. It is I think it has actually been done in this current sprint and should be released tomorrow. But I'll confirm that with you afterwards, if you like, Alex. But it's certainly it's been done. I'm not absolutely certain which release it's in.
That's fantastic, Emma. And is it, just whilst you're there, Emma, is it okay if I email you about any kind of information governance things to do with the Arrive thing, because I'm trying to get that through?
Feel free to email me. If it's not myself that will deal with it, I can obviously pass it on to whoever's appropriate.
That's great, Emma. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Emma. I'm just conscious of time there. Any final questions then before we leave it there? Oh, brilliant, good stuff. If you do have any questions, we do have our emails available on the screen there, the training, the sales and the support team as well. Thank you all for joining. As I mentioned at the top of the call, the webinar itself is recorded, so you'll have access to that link as well. Anyone that's registered will have access to the link too. And yeah, thank you all for joining, and see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.